Hey, it's Kelly from MXHideout. If you're brand new to dirt bikes or carb tuning and want to make your bike run right, here are 3 steps that I would tell a friend of mine if they were new to carb tuning and didn't know where to start. Plus at the end, I'm going to reveal a secret tip on how to prevent messing it up, making it worse. Step number 1 is making sure that the carburetor is properly cleaned and sealed. Over half of the project bikes that I buy require carburetor work, and it's because they're dirty or they're leaking. Both those things happen just from old age, letting gas sit in them for a while because gas breaks down and it gums up and clogs those tiny little jet circuits, and it doesn't take much to affect the jetting, causing it to run richer or leaner. For example, one of the most common problems I see is a dirty pilot jet. The pilot jet is typically the smallest jet in a carburetor, but it's the most important for starting, idling, and low RPM throttle response and power. So if that tiny jet is clogged, which being small, it's most likely to get clogged, your bike isn't gonna start easily or run right, or even run at all because of that $10 piece of brass. And if there's a seal that's leaking, your bike could be using a lot more gas and it could be running terribly rich because it's sucking in way too much fuel, and you could end up wasting hours or days changing jets when that's not actually the problem. And to clean the carb, there's a few ways to do this. You could leave the carb on the bike and spray some cleaner through the jets, but you want to be careful because carb cleaner can ruin gaskets and seals. So it's best to take all the jets and gaskets and seals out and clean them separately, and then make sure all of the circuits and holes and jets are clear before you put them back in. Step number 2 is identifying which jet circuit is causing the problem. There's quite a few different components on a carburetor, especially a 4-stroke with an accelerator pump, but just to make things simple, I narrow it down to 3 main jet circuits: the pilot, the needle, and the main jet. This is where I see at least 80% of the jetting problems. If it's a rich or lean jetting symptom right off of idle, it's usually the pilot jet circuit. Whereas if it's around half throttle, it's usually the needle. But if it's like 3/4 to wide open throttle, you have a jetting symptom, that's most likely the main jet. And if you want to go more in depth, I cover this in my sounds and symptoms tuning method in my 4-stroke jetting made easy program. And step number 3 is recognizing whether it's rich or lean. This can be challenging if you're brand new to carb tuning, if you can't understand and recognize the sounds and symptoms that a rich or lean jetting symptom makes. However, I have a complete list of rich and lean jetting symptoms, what they sound and feel like, in my 4-stroke jetting made easy program. But the number 1 sign that a 4-stroke is running rich is the sound of sputtering. So when you try and rev it up, it just spits and sputters, and sometimes if you keep accelerating or trying to accelerate, it gets over that. But sometimes it just sputters until you let off the throttle. This rich symptom is because there's too much fuel getting into the engine that it can't properly ignite and burn that mixture. It kind of sounds like the rev limiter, but it's a little less consistent, and sometimes it's at a lower RPM, so it's not hitting max RPM when it does that. Where on the flip side, a lean jetting sound is going to be like a bogging, dying sound. So it sounds like you're hitting the kill switch, and it doesn't accelerate until you let off the throttle a little bit, or sometimes it gets over it. And it's generally worse the quicker you twist the throttle. So that lean mixture means that it's getting too much air or not enough fuel, or both. You might be thinking, that's great, Kelly, but I'm brand new to carb tuning. My bike sounds like it's running rich, it's sputtering, but I'm afraid of going too lean and making it worse, because if you're familiar with lean jetting, that makes the engine run hotter. Look, I totally understand why you're afraid of doing that, because if it gets too lean for too long, it will get too hot and start to melt the piston and valves. However, from my experience, there's 2 reasons why this isn't as big of a deal as you think. Number 1 is when the pilot or the needle are jetted too lean, which Did you know that some factory bikes are jetted too lean when you buy them brand new? That's why they're really hard to start when cold and they take forever to warm up and they're really boggy. But when the pilot or the needle are too lean, the engine isn't at a high enough RPM to create enough heat to overheat the bike, at least to the extent of burning the piston or the valves down. The number one area where you need to be concerned is the main jet, because if that is jetted too lean, that is where when you're riding at 3/4 to wide open throttle, and that is when the engine's gonna be running at the highest RPM. It has the heaviest load, and it's gonna create the most friction, creating the most heat. So when it's too lean on the main jet at high RPM, that is when it's most likely to get too hot and burn things down. However, reason number two is even if you go too lean on the jetting, it's not gonna blow up within 10 seconds, which is all you need to make a jetting adjustment or to actually test a jetting change. You don't need to ride it for 30 minutes, an hour, several hours to know if it's too rich or too lean based on how it sounds and feels. All right, you might be thinking, okay, well, maybe I should give this a try, but you're still thinking, where do I even start? Great question. The best and easiest way to start is the air or fuel screw. And on 4-strokes, it's typically a fuel screw, which is on the bottom front side of the carburetor. It's a little brass screw, and you can tune it, adjust it without taking the carb off. And if you want to learn how to do that in 5 minutes, I got a free guide. It's my 5-minute fuel screw tuning guide. You can grab that in the description below. Did you find this video helpful? Let me know in the comments below. I want you to learn how to tune your carb so that it can start easily and run right with better power and reliability so that you can enjoy riding, because I hate a bike that doesn't run right. I'm Kelly Fagan from MXHideout. Ride safe, have fun.